Hello everyone, Rachel Weaver here. I am on faculty and staff at Lighthouse Writers Workshop. I've been making a series of videos called The Story of a Book, in which I ask a debut author to tell us the story of how his or her book came to be in the world. So today joining us is Jeffrey Voccola. Thanks for joining us, Jeffrey.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So Jeffrey's book, his first novel, came out May 11th. It's called King's Row. It was published with Hidden River Press. It's out in Kindle right now and is forthcoming in hardback, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am going to turn it over to you, Jeffrey, and let you tell us a bit about how this book came to be in the world.
Okay, great. So I started writing this book in 2008. So it was a long time ago. The book, I had initially written short stories. I'd never written a novel before. I didn't know if I wanted to or not. There was an incident in Pennsylvania where some young men went to a college town and they went drinking at the bar there, and they got really drunk and were angry and became violent, and started picking fights. And at the end of the night, when the bars let out, they decided they were going to jump the next person that came around the corner. They did this randomly. They didn't know the person. And tragically, they did this and they killed a freshman who was going to the university. So this incident had a big impact on me, and when these types of tragedies occur, I feel that we should have a conversation about these things. So I felt compelled to start writing about it, and very quickly the novel became something else. It's all fictionalized, and I was looking at other tragedies as well, things like the Virginia Tech shooting, and trying to figure out why these things occur and also how we deal with these types of tragedies. Sadly, as we all know, when these things occur, they tend to go in and out of the news very quickly. We don't have those types of conversations. So I started working on the novel. I teach creative and professional writing at Kutztown University, and I love my job, but the workload could be overwhelming. So I found it difficult to write while I was teaching, such a heavy teaching load. And so I would mostly focus on writing the novel during the breaks, summer and winter breaks. I went on sabbatical leave in 2013, and that's what helped me to finish the book, because I was able to work every day for about 8 months. That helped me to really focus and finish a draft of the novel. So that was a great experience, kind of working through that. And after that happened, I started sending out to publishers and agents. I went to Lighthouse, I went to Swanee Writers Conference, Bread Loaf, Aspen Summer Words, and I met with agents and publishers and talked about the book. And I kept getting rejections. Now I was already already about 5 years into this project at this point. But although I was getting rejections, I was also getting a lot of positive feedback. What I kept hearing from agents was that, I like what you're doing here, but this isn't for me. And that phrase in particular, I heard over and over again. I'm not sure why, whether they felt maybe it's not marketable, or the subject matter, they didn't, it's too controversial, or whatever it may be. But I kept getting rejections. So I shopped the book around. I probably contacted hundreds of agents and publishers, and I didn't get anything for about 4 years. About that time, I finally broke through and found an agent with Curtis Brown, which is a huge agency. And it looked great. The agent I was working with was excited about the book. We saw eye to eye on many of the ideas in the book. And so I signed a contract contract with Curtis Brown. And I finally got an email from Curtis Brown, not my agent, but from the company. And they said that he had moved on to another position. And no one ever told me about this. So then they said, but you're under contract with us, so we're going to find you another agent here. And after about 8 months, they finally told me, we don't have someone else. We think it's best if we parted ways. And that was it. So after thinking I had an agent for over a year, it kind of wasted all that time because I wasn't searching for any other agents. So that was, it's very frustrating. This is a very competitive business. But nevertheless, I figured I would give it one more round, and I sent out to some more agents, and I entered some contests. And one of the contests was for Hidden River Press, and I won the 2018 Blue Mountain Novel Contest. And that gave me publication and a cash prize as well. So it was, at that point, I was ready to move on. I really thought that, okay, if nothing else, this novel taught me how to write a novel. That experience is valuable. And I figured, let me go on to the next project and see what happens. And then all of a sudden, I got this email saying that I won the contest. So yeah, you just don't know how these things are going to work out, I guess.
So one thing that stands out as I listen to you talk here is your persistence. It's amazing, actually. I feel like I hear from a lot of students and friends just sort of a level of lost hope in the midst of all that. So how did you manage to keep going, I guess is my question. When you were getting all of these rejections, when so much time was passing by, how did you kind of hold on to that hope or that belief that, something will pan out eventually? Or did you have that belief, I guess?
I really didn't know, to be honest with you, because just because you have a strong novel doesn't mean you'll get published or that it will be successful. There's so much competition. But I think what helped me was that I kept getting feedback from other writers, and the conferences were fantastic. And what I was hearing was that things were working in the novel. So that's what helped me to keep going. If I was hearing, and I think it's important to listen to other writers, if I was hearing in these workshops that, something's not working here, I probably would have gone on to the next project much sooner, but I really wasn't getting that kind of feedback. And I also think that I teach creative writing, and this is just what I do. So regardless if I'm publishing or not, I'm not just going to stop doing this. And I think that I think it's important for writers to have that attitude. All of us want to be successful and to find success as soon as possible. But it doesn't always work out that way. And I think that you have to enjoy what you're doing, even though it can be, the work can be so overwhelming and it can be frustrating. And you have to remind yourself that you're working on something that matters, something that you want to say. And that even if it doesn't go into print, you're gaining something from the experience. I truly believe that.
Yeah, that the point you're making there comes up in these story of a book discussions often, which is that, I think our society places success on the product, but I think in trying to achieve that product, a lot of times what we come to as creative people is that there's a lot of success in the process, right? There's a lot of satisfaction in staying committed to the process and following, that what if question and creating stories and incorporating that creativity into our own lives. I think there's a certain level of satisfaction to that that's totally separate from the product that may or may not come out of it.
That's right. And the early drafts of the book weren't as strong. And as much as I would have loved to have had it been published in those early drafts, looking back, I realized that wouldn't have been a good thing, that the novel is much stronger. So maybe I needed to work with it more, and maybe I needed to take the time to kind of figure out what the novel was doing, because it was constantly changing.
And tell me a little bit about your experience with Hidden River Press. Are they a smaller or a mid-size press? How's your experience been as an author at working with them?
They've been fantastic. They're a small press out of Philadelphia. I believe they've been around for 15 years. I could be mistaken about it, but somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. I had a great experience with them. Now, being such a small press and having a small staff, you have to be patient as well. So it took maybe a year and a half for the book to finally come out. When you hear that you're accepted, you kind of want to jump into it right away, and all right, let's start the edits and get this going, and you have to be patient with that. So, it's always, I always get anxious with these things, but you manage. But the experience has been great with them. They provided some fantastic feedback for the book. And they just gave me a great opportunity to put it out there. And when you see a press that's excited about your book, especially a small press, because small presses can't churn out books all the time, so they really have to think carefully about what they're going to publish. That's just a great feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking to us today, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it. And congrats on the publication of your book.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.